I'm about to pick a beef with Kyle Kulinski. Mommy made your favorite open wide. Okay, so the skinny on this is that Kyle Kulinski, the host of Secular Talk, which is a large lefty YouTube channel, had, through some, I don't know, occult ritual, managed to snag Jordan Peterson for an interview / debate. I've been seeing people call this a debate. I've been seeing people call this like an interview. Usually I like Kyle, but he put together a series of clips from like the over an hour long interview, and we're just gonna watch this one clip, which is about 12 minutes long, and it is Kyle and Jordan talking about Elliot Page and trans people. I don't watch a lot of Secular Talk. I don't watch a lot of Kyle Kulinski. Also, Kyle recently started up a new podcast with Crystal Ball, who used to be the host of The Rising, and who now hosts a show with Sagar and Jetty. I forget exactly what it's called, like the Reckoning or something. Can't we just leave Elliot alone? No, because you see, trans people existing in modern society is unacceptable to conservatives. And so we can't leave any trans person alone, ever. I heard Jordan Peterson and trans people in the same sentence. I'm sickened. Well, what is somewhat baffling to me about this interview, and I do have to admit, I pre-watched. I did a little pre-watch-arino. Is that a lot of people said that Kyle was providing pushback throughout this show. And I gotta say, I don't see the pushback in this clip, in this 12-minute clip. Now, I don't want to say that that is indicative of the entire interview, but I guess here's my take, okay? Here's my take. If you're just going to give a conservative a platform with no pushback, because you think they'll like hang themselves and make them look bad, you know, that was a figure of speech. Conservatives will just say that on their own platforms. It doesn't make them look bad to conservatives. It just legitimizes them more by you silently standing by, nodding along, somewhat kind of moving through the conversation. So we're gonna give it a watch, and we'll talk more about it as it unfolds. Okay.
So I noticed just the other day you were banned from Twitter. Now, you know, I'm somebody, nobody can...
Oh, by the way, Jordan Peterson is still super mad about being banned from Twitter. He just put out a video today continuing to be mad about being banned from Twitter. He's so fucking angry, chat. He's so fucking angry. It's hilarious if he didn't have millions of followers.
Argue against my lefty credentials. Everybody knows I'm a man of the left. Having said that, my solution on this issue of social media censorship has always been, look, we need to expand First Amendment protections. And the way you do that is to regulate these big social media companies like they're public utilities. So if you do that, then you know, basically you're saying this is the new public square and people can speak their mind here. Now, that doesn't mean, of course, you can't, you know, dox people or do direct threats of violence or anything like anything that's actually illegal will remain illegal. But outside of that,
I mean, okay, here's one of my issues is that, like, I don't think you'd ever have a system like this that works, right? A lot of people will talk about, oh, we need to make Twitter into a public utility. No, we need to make the internet a public utility, like that would function like roads. Roads allow you to go to private areas, like that, and that's fine. But Twitter isn't a new public square. Like, logging onto Twitter is like going to the mall and like jumping on a stool and just shouting at random people. And the mall is privately owned, and they're gonna want you to leave because you're disturbing everyone else. There are basic rules to follow while you're on that private property. Yeah, no one would use a public Twitter. They're... yeah. yeah, Holly Hoomps, exactly. I don't know. To me, this just seems to misunderstand what Twitter is and what terms of service are. Generally speaking, we want places to have terms of service outside of just you can't post child pornography or like threaten people. Like we want spaces to have terms of service so that there aren't just like a million chatbots that are posting the N-word every time a black person posts something. Like there are reasons we would want to have terms of service beyond just like conservatives get to use it too. Like, no, on a public Twitter, conservatives would still be banned if it was in any way usable. Hey, Jack in chat. I think I followed a little while ago, but here to support a fellow trans streamer. Oh, Maya's Space. Hello, welcome. We're doing a little leftist infighting over here. There is a public service on Twitter. It's called news groups. Saying illegal things is subjective when considering the conservative community. So many conservatives think that gay people are pedos they think that that's not illegal to say. Right. Like, yeah. Turns out saying slander and libel are both illegal. The other problem with Kyle is that he engages in what I call free speech utopianism. This is the Z-tier idea that the best ideas always win out. Oh yeah, no. There is some merit to that idea when things are in balance, right? There is some merit to the idea when you are assuming that the majority of actors are like rational, that they share the same interests. But like most conservatives in America right now don't believe in the basic premises of democracy. So like the idea that the best idea is going to win out, or like there aren't like significant tech savvy like white supremacist communities that would harness like chatbots or like DDoS attacks to achieve their own goals, like that happens now, and that would just escalate in free speech Twitter. I don't know. Like, we already have essentially free speech Twitter, and it's called 4chan, okay? 4chan, if you want free speech, if you want to see what free speech Twitter would look like, just go to 4chan, okay? 4chan is just a shithole, okay? It's there are some corners of it that are fine and lovely. I like some of the gaming areas where like they'll post tabletop RPG stories, but like 4chan, even 4chan polices itself to some extent. Okay, I'm old enough and online enough to remember when 4chan got sick of people talking about Gamergate stuff on their website, and so they banned discussion of Gamergate. And that pushed it onto a then up-and-coming website called 8chan, that then became 8kun, which is now known for two things, being the place where a lot of QAnon drops happen, and also for child pornography. So, like, the pipeline from, from the best example we have of free speech Twitter to like being somewhat policed and then it just pushed the free speech warriors to a place that hosts child pornography. Real weird. Weird how that overlaps, you know? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder why Truth Social isn't the really doing numbers, you know? It's almost like conservatives just want to force people they disagree with to have to listen to them. They want a captive audience. They don't want, like, an actual discussion.
That you can't censor people just based on political opinion.
Okay, but Kyle, you absolutely can, right? Like, if your political opinion is that it's not political to say the N-word, that if your opinion is it's not a political matter to say the N-word, you're wrong. Don't you mean you left one? That's a high-level idea, Phoenix. I'm not dignifying it with a low-level response.
So, I definitely wouldn't have banned you, suspended you, etc. But I do have a question about that specific tweet that did get you in trouble because, you said something to the effect of...
well, I don't know if it got me in trouble. I don't think I'm in trouble. Twitter banned me, but I don't consider that trouble.
That's fair enough.
I don't consider that trouble, says man who's been crying about this for the last month and a half.
Fair point. But you said something to the effect of, remember when pride was a sin and the criminal physician...
And Ellen Page just had her breasts cut off by a criminal physician.
Criminal physician, exactly. So my question is the physician really criminal? If you agree that adults can decide to transition, then why would the physician be criminal? Don't adults have that right if they want to transition?
He's so fucking mad.
Not everything legal isn't criminal. And do they have that right? See, I would have left Ellen Page alone if...
By what metric, good sir? Criminal by what metric?
She hadn't been parading her new abs in a fashion magazine.
I wouldn't have said anything if Elliot Page wasn't looking so hot with his abs in a magazine. There is so much to, like, dissect going on here, okay? Just real quick. Yeah, Elliot Page was asking for it. Very interesting that Jordan Peterson doesn't call out every single person who works in the modeling industry, just like Elliot Page, and then, like, plus-size models. Like, you don't see Jordan Peterson being like, let's see. What I need an example here. Yeah, here we go. Remember when pride was a sin? Remember when pride was a sin? She's basically asking for me to write about her body on Twitter. She's basically asking for it, dressing like that on a magazine cover. Like, you don't see him doing that. So clearly it's not the parading around on magazines that's got him upset.
How many kids do you think she can convince to convert?
How many people, by existing publicly, how many kids are being transed as we talk about it right now? How many kids am I transing right now, chat? I have a public platform. I'm on a public website. I'm transing the kids right now. Now, like, we do joke, but also, like, you guys see how this logic progresses, right? Jordan Peterson is putting together a bunch of disparate points that by trans people existing publicly and being known as trans people, that they are, in effect, unraveling the rest of society by merely existing. Yeah, Time Machine Guy, how dare these people exist so vigorously? How dare they not be ashamed of themselves and hide in their homes and never come out? You get how this combines kind of this idea of trans people being inherently predatory, right? That trans people existing is an ongoing effect that transes the rest of society, and by transing ever more kids, society itself will collapse, making trans people an existential threat to Western civilization. When Jordan Peterson is connecting these ideas, this is, I know people have been saying that talking about the framework of genocidal ideation is hyperbolic or catastrophizing, but that is what Jordan Peterson is doing here. He's putting together the scaffolding that justifies a deadly campaign against trans people. And this should be worrisome, even if you're not trans. The fact that these these influential conservative thinkers are putting together these ideas and then getting actively angry should tell you which direction they're heading in. Exactly, Metal Kitty Mom. That trans people, individuals, by existing, are a danger, and therefore the danger needs to be eliminated. And in order to eliminate that danger, you need to eliminate trans people. That's where that conversation goes, right? Like, if you asked Jordan Peterson what should be done about this transing issue, he would say something along the lines of, like, well, trans people shouldn't be allowed to transition. We should make sure that there are fewer trans people, or even that, like, trans people should not be able to receive the medical care that they need. That trans people should, in effect, be ostracized from society, be forced out of the country, and yeah, I bet if you asked Jordan Peterson what he thinks about what Blair White referred to as transgender prisons, he would be in favor of it. You know, he'd be in favor of it.
A 1?
Yeah.
1,000? No, not, yeah.
No,
really?
I want to respond to that.
Oh, also, when Jordan Peterson talks about there being this transing effect, that doesn't exist. The entire, like, and I know that I keep bringing this up, the entire argument of, like, transness being a social contagion is predicated on, like, one study. And that study is what invented the term rapid onset gender dysphoria. And essentially, that study had to be redone, or rewritten, rather, because it was so misleading. The study actually interviewed parents of teenagers who, from the parents' perspective, rapidly developed gender dysphoria. But it's actually really understandable that their kids didn't want to tell them that they felt trans because they knew their parents would not be supportive, as evidenced by the fact that their parents turned to anti-trans parenting websites like Mumsnet. The in fact, the entire study's sample size of parents, because the study didn't study trans kids, it studied the parents' perspectives on their kids. And they only took parental perspectives from anti-trans websites. So, like, I see where the social contagion comes from. It's hard to deny the trans tipping point is a thing. More trans people makes it easier to understand those feelings. Well, it's not necessarily more trans people. It's just more education around trans issues. More people realizing that it's okay to march to the beat of your own drum. The more people realizing that it's okay to be different. And that, like, it's actually good to be happy instead of just living miserably. Yeah, more visible trans people. Yeah. I don't own a drum. Everyone owns a drum, okay? You can drum on your tummy. So anyway, the studies he's referencing here, the social contagion element here is just trans people existing and more people knowing about trans people. And the studies that he cites to support him are completely wrong and irrelevant.
That.
Why is the transgender suicide rate so high? Largely because of social pressures that are opposed to trans people existing. That's why. Largely Boki Bacon, we know from numerous studies that at least one parent accepting their trans kid leads to, like, an astronomical reduction in suicidality for trans folks. The fact that trans people, like, when they go to the bathroom in public, have to be afraid and worried, like, that leads to a lot of things going wrong, both physically and mentally. For example, did you know that a lot of trans people purposely dehydrate themselves so they don't have to use public restrooms? In fact, this is so common among trans people that trans people have an extremely elevated risk for kidney diseases and bladder infections because they're holding their urine in so much and because they are dehydrating themselves. And that's just one of the physical elements that plays into trans people having larger or worse health outcomes, right? That's just one of the physical, like, ramifications. We're not even talking about the mental ramifications of transness. You know, how does one feel when, like, you turn on the news and, like, the news is talking about how, like, a trans woman got beheaded when they were found out by their boyfriend that they were trans? Or how does one react when you are a trans person and you know that could happen to you? How does one react when you learn that it is, in fact, a legal and valid defense in many states around the country to say that, well, you panicked because someone told you they were trans, and that is a viable defense for then murdering them? You know, how does one mentally process, you know, the idea that they're trans when everyone around them growing up talked about, like, trans people or gay people being abominations? You know, like, when you are ostracized by your entire community growing up, like, yeah, like, or even how does it affect, like, and like, it's never just one thing, it's never just one layer, right? Because then you have to contend with the fact that, like, oh, you know, a bunch of people, they're like, oh yeah, you know, Friends, it's such a good show from the 90s. Let's all sit down for a Friends marathon. And then you get to the episodes where, like, a trans person shows up, and every depiction of, like, a trans person from that show is just to make fun of how freakish trans people are, you know? Or almost every single depiction in media is that trans people are murderers or violent or sex creeps. And how does that then affect trans people mentally? You know, on top of like the other aspects, the physical safety aspects, the ostracization from family, friends, community. Like if you're living in a rural area and you're suddenly cut off from your religious community, like, yeah, you're fucked. Like a lot of people just lose hope and they fucking kill themselves. Yeah, like how do you think it feels when if you're in a predominantly conservative area and conservatives around you just start thinking or just start calling you like a pedophile because you're a trans person? And like Joe Rogan said something that week, or like because you're a trans person and the don't say gay about bills passed. You know, like, yeah, of course it's going to lead to more people wanting to fucking die. Because society is making them want to fucking die. Does that make sense? I didn't know that being trans was an actual thing as opposed to a punchline horror trope until I was 18 and on a Wikipedia crawl. Yeah, and Holly Hoomst, I'm a trans person, and growing up, I didn't know that being trans was a real thing either. Because the only time I saw trans people in media was on Maury Povich or like Jerry Springer. And like, they're not treated like real people on those shows. They're treated like props. Like fucking jokes. Or like on South Park, where you have like a character cross-dressing and being like fucking weird and not being treated like normal. You know, like I only realized that trans people could exist as normal people when I was like 22. You know? So, yeah, that's why the suicide rate for trans people is higher. And if you can't wrap your head around that, imagine living in a world where just all men blanketly are considered pedophiles and called that all the time. And like people hide their kids from you because they think you're a pedophile. You know, like just try and wrap your head around how that might make you feel if all men were considered pedophiles. You know, if there was legislation being passed that barred men from getting too close to schools because men predominantly are dangers to children. You know, or if men had to, I don't know, were being denied medical care because I don't know, like erectile dysfunction isn't medically necessary or something like that. I don't know. Are you telling me they? Okay, whatever. My comparison is falling apart, but like, just try and imagine that. If you can. All right, here we go. Back to this.
I think that with the trans community, it's very similar to the gay community, where back when that first became a big issue, people thought, oh, if we talk about it, if it's in magazines or whatever, we're promoting kids to go down that path. But really what happened is people are...
Well, Quincy, here's my stance on pedophiles. Are you ready for it? Are you ready for it? I'm in favor of whatever leads to less children being sexually abused. If that means pedophiles should receive medical care, then I'm in favor of it. And I do have to say, I think generally speaking, not giving people medical care is probably not a good move. That's my position there, you know? Like if you're like, say you're a pedophile and you know that if other people like if you go to get treatment, that people are going to deny you like medical care if you ever need to use the hospital. Like, you're not going to go and get treatment, and eventually you're probably going to break down and molest some kids. And I would rather those kids not get molested. There we go.
Are who they are, and if they're gay, they just decided to be like, yeah, I'm gay, and they were just more open and honest with themselves. So I don't think you're promoting people to do that.
No, that's
you're just
not
saying,
what happened.
If you are that, it's okay.
Wrong.
Okay, well,
you're utterly
I'm
wrong.
Listening.
There's
I'm
nothing
listening.
about that that's right.
So explain.
Well, there's been an absolute look. One of the reasons that I opposed Bill C-16 in Canada to begin with, this pronoun compelled speech bill, was because I knew perfectly well what was going to happen.
I knew perfectly well what was going to happen with this bill. And all of the things that I predicted happening did not actually happen, because I lied about it repeatedly and built my career off of lying about it.
And when we introduced confusion about gender identity into the public sphere. Now, the argument was that if we left people with gender dysphoria alone to make their own way and stop torturing them, that we would decrease the mental health load on those individuals. And my analysis as a clinician was that for every one person of that sort that we hypothetically saved, we doom 1,000 more as a consequence of confusion and social.
Now, look, okay? The argument was if we just stopped torturing people, that their mental conditions would improve. But actually, my position is that we should continue torturing people. You see, that is the real solution, conservative folks who follow me, Jordan Peterson, is to torture trans people. Chat, he's literally arguing for torturing trans people into silence. That is... I'll replay the clip for you. I'll play that back. Yeah, nah, DB Raymond, 100%. He's proposing some kind of final solution. Here, we'll play this back, in case you're a conservative in the audience and missed that part.
That for every on those individuals, that we was that if we left people with gender dysphoria alone to make their own way and stop torturing them, that we would decrease the mental health load on those individuals. And my analysis as a clinician was that for every one person of that sort that we hypothetically saved, we doom 1,000 more.
We doom 1,000 more to be not miserable in their bodies. Again, the conflation here between, like, being trans and being doomed. Oh yes, I'm so doomed right now by not wanting to die. I'm so doomed right now by not being fucking miserable all the time.
As a consequence of confusion and social contagion. I knew the literature on psychogenic epidemics. They used to call that mass hysteria, and it's a literature that goes back about 300 years. And often when you introduce social confusion, you can produce a psychogenic epidemic, especially generally it's adolescent females who are most susceptible to it. So I thought,
So what he's saying there is, what he's using to gussy up his language there, psychogenic epidemic, is just what's known as mass hysteria, which I do want to point out is far more prevalent among conservative circles. Okay? The satanic panic, for example, largely fueled by a mass hysteria. Transgender people aren't a mass hysteria. Transgender people have existed for all of human history. I don't know, is India currently in the middle of a mass hysteria because they've had a legally recognized gender for like 2,000 years? Like, I don't think so. Like, I'm sorry. There again. I'll pull out the map. One of my favorite resources put together by PBS. The PBS gender map. The map of gender diverse cultures. We'll pull that out here. Take a look at it. Oops. Look, you got a world full of diverse genders from every single point on the globe. From isolated civilizations in the middle of the Pacific to densely populated areas in Asia or Italy, to the United States and like native peoples. Gender geography, it's called anthropology. And I'm sorry, but like at every single point of the globe, there have been diverse gender folks. So again, this kind of throws a wrench into the whole trans people are a mass hysteria dreamed up by like crazy leftists. Also, because I saw you say this in chat, Public Loser. Fun fact for y'all. There are real Merkins, okay? There are real Merkins. Did you know this, folks? When the British invaded, and I went down this rabbit hole because I was finding out about the third verse of the Star-Spangled Banner, which talks about subjugating slaves in glowing terms. And that's because the Star-Spangled Banner was written when the British invaded in 1812. And, Merkins. When the British invaded, the United States still had slavery. The British did not. And so the commanding officers of England's naval forces essentially were like, hey, if you are currently a slave, if you manage to get to one of our military outposts or ships, we will free you, and you can either relocate to outside of the United States, or you can join in our army to help retake the United States. And so several thousand formerly enslaved African Americans took up arms against the United States. And that's why in the song about how great the land of the free and the home of the brave is, they talk about how great it is to crush down slaves. Anyway, after the War of 1812 was done, the British, surprisingly, made good on their word. And they relocated the folks who had helped them attack America to Trinidad and Tobago, where they were given farms and they were given land and farms, organized among the several regiments that had been made of freed folk. And they still exist down in Trinidad and Tobago to this day, and they are referred to as Merkins. Isn't that fun? Largely Baptist. Yeah. I know, done randomly. I know. Crazy stuff, right? British, the British doing something somewhat decent? Crazy, I know. Salmon moose? I don't know what a pussy wig is, but I really like that term, and I'm gonna use it as an insult from now on. What the fuck? So you're telling me the British made good on a promise after they lost a war, but the US said, Lamau, fuck your 40 acres and a mule? Yep. I know a merkin refers to like a hairpiece, but I don't know what a pussy wig is. Wait, are merkins made out of pubic hair? Merkins are wigs for the genitals? Did you just come in on merkin discourse? Yes, we were talking about the merkin people who live in Trinidad and Tobago and their history of being freed from enslavement by the British. Would you prefer dick wig? Yeah, no, they're called merkins. Like, I thought merkin was just another word for a headpiece. Does it make your head look like a vulva? Like a Volvo? Okay, we're falling so far off track. No, they're called. Chad, I'm not making it up. Okay, they're literally called merkins. Okay, It's also strangely the same spelling as the pubic wig, and that's just unfortunate, okay? That's... Nah, they not merkins. They're merkins. Merkins. I guess it's not the same spelling. There's an extra I. Merkin. Yeah, okay. Whew. Alright, my eyes are just bad. Anyway, sorry, I apologize to all of the Merkin viewers I have. I'm sorry. Which came first, the Merkins or the Merkins? I don't know. Merkin. Etymology. Okay, they have totally different etymologies, okay? And the word originates in the early 1600s. So it's a combination of mald and mod, which turns into malkin, which turns into merkin. Jesus. What? What? Wait, what? Female pudenda, 1650s, earlier Makin, 1530s, apparently a variant of malkin in its sense of mop, meaning artificial vagina or counterfeit hair for a woman's privy parts. Gross is attested from 1610s. According to the Oxford Companion to the Body, the custom of wearing merkins dates from the mid-15th century, was associated with prostitutes, and was to disguise a want of pubic hair, either shaved off to exterminate body lice, or a result of venereal disease. This put a strange whim in his head. This put a strange whim in his head, which was to get the hairy circle of a prostitute's merkin. This he dried well and combed out, and then returned to the cardinal, telling him he had brought St. Peter's beard. Alexander Smith, A Complete History of the Lives and Robberies of the Most Notorious Highwaymen, 1714. I desperately want to hear more about this story. I desperately... Can we just stay on this instead of JBP? No, JBP is on... Talking about JBP is talking about a merkin in the classical sense. Anyway, continuing.
Well, what's going to happen is we'll produce a psychogenic epidemic of gender dysphoria among adolescent females. And that is exactly what's happened. And it isn't the fact that we've freed up people who are
garbage.
What?
pure, undiluted
identity
garbage,
they are.
meaningless drivel,
That may have happened
nonsense.
in a tiny minority of cases.
That's all they were.
Absolutely and definitely
Junk.
the case that we've doomed thousands.
And when I thought this is what these kids in this preschool are seeing,
premature sterility, and we.
You know what? I could back us up to replay everything he said, but I know it's all just hateful nonsense, and he doesn't deserve the extra attention.
Done that on the altar of our hypothetical moral virtue and compassion. Look, I read a
Look, it's hypothetical virtue to not torture someone, okay? It's hypothetical virtue to not put trans people in conversion camps, okay?
corporate analysis of the trans surgery industry last week. Growth rate projection for you lefty types and your anti-corporatism.
That's true. Lefties are against all kinds of corporatism. And it's true. There shouldn't be a profit motive in providing medical care. But that applies for a lefty to all medical care. We should just have universal coverage. Baycop, thank you for the 400 biddies. I'm in the hole like a big toe. We miss you. We miss you, Baycop. Sorry, I've been away a bit. Social work demands my soul every day. Understandable. Also, thank you for the hype train, folks. But, you know, like, there's also a profit motive and a much bigger profit motive in the, I don't know, artificial hip replacement industry. The artificial hip replacement industry is gonna explode in a couple years, okay? Because we got a lot more old people coming up, alright? Weird that I don't hear Jordan Peterson complaining about the big money interest behind the artificial hip replacement industry. A difficult truth. Thank you so much for the raid. Welcome, raiders. My name is Riverboat Jack. I'm a cute socialist leftist, and we're talking about a lot of different things today. So welcome, folks. For those of you who don't know who I am, I talk about the need for democracy in the workplace and the need to decommodify the things that people need to live in a modern society, like food, water, housing, education, etc., and how we can make all of those things free, and how that would drastically improve our lives, and how we can do that in a relatively reasonable and straightforward way. Yes, we also just finished talking about the history of the Merkins, who are the former slaves who had been freed by the British during the War of 1812, and who got relocated to Trinidad and Tobago and were granted lands for participating in the war. One of the rare instances of England actually upholding its word, and then we fell down a rabbit hole because Merkin sounds an awful lot like Merkin, and I learned that Merkin is a term for essentially a hairpiece for the genitalia, and that was just delightful.
Growth rate projection, 15% per year. Invest now. A $350 million business as of 2022.
Damn, a $350 million business? Hip replacement industry growth. Ryla, thank you for the 2 gifted subs! And Quincy, there you go. Let's see, total global hip replacement market is growing at a rate of 5.3%, which will take the 2021 market value of $8.7 billion up to $12.5 billion by 2028. Oh no, guys. The trans peoples, so many dollars are going to trans all of the people. Yeah, exponentially more money goes into, like, hip replacement. You don't hear Jordan Peterson complaining about hip replacements. Odafin Ola, thank you very much for subscribing. I appreciate it. You had me at Merkin. Ah, hell yeah. Let's see here.
Projected to expand to 750 million by 2027. No moral hazard there? There's plenty of moral hazard there.
What
and
percentage?
What about all of the moral hazard of an industry that is 10 to 100 times the size, Jordan? Interesting. Are you anti-capitalism? Welcome, based socialist Jordan Peterson. Also, chat, we've been I know I've been pausing this clip and stopping it periodically, and we're only 4.5 minutes into it. But notice how Kyle hasn't said anything to counter what Jordan is saying.
Surgery is absolutely brutal.
So what percentage of the population do you think, in your conception of how this is unfolding, what percentage of the population...
Also, the audio got really screwed up somehow. I don't know if that's on Jordan's end or Kyle's end.
Do you think is going to end up being trans at the end of this? Do you think one day it's going to be 70% of the country is trans?
We know already that about 1 in 5 adolescents now identifies, to use that hated word, identifies as part of the hypothetical LGBTQ plus.
Okay, I'm gonna pause you right there, Jordy P. Okay, I'm gonna pause you right there because notice what he did there, right? Notice what Jordan just cleverly did not answer the question, right? First of all, hypothetical LGBTQ. Pretty sure we exist, Jordan. It's not hypothetical. Jordan, have you ever been to a pride parade? Are pride parades hypothetical at this point? Are gay bars hypothetical? The Simulacra, thank you for the follow. Chat, we have 1.5 minutes left on this hype train. Let's go. Please help me to eat and to have a place to stream from and sleep. I would really very much appreciate the help because I'm a full-time streamer and I need money to live. Abe Lincoln has assured me gay bars are real. It's true. Ryla, thank you for the 400 unicorn penises. KBS, thank you for the 300 biddies. Jack must not be homeless. I might be biased, but I agree. We have 55 seconds. Let's go, chat! And we have some unsubbed folks in chat right now. Consider gifting them subs, because you know what? Capitalism and advertising is a cold, cold place, alright? Gay bars like Lil Nas X. Look, Lil Nas X has a gay bar, but it's a really high gay bar, okay? The highest bar. My rear end, we looked at it already. You know what? I actually had time to edit together a peepo image. Look at that, look at that. I edited it together. Look, it's the first James Webb Space Telescope image. And I already put a little peepo staring in wonder at the great possibilities of the universe. Isn't that cool? Look at that. Science is neat. Chat, thank you for trying to get me food, but the hype train is over. No food for Riverboat Jack. Okay. That image is truly startling. True. All right. But first of all, gay people, not hypothetical. Second of all, Kyle asks him what percentage of people are going to be trans. And in order to use his startling and spooky statistic, Jordan Peterson has to combine lesbians, bisexuals, gays, along with trans people and the plus community, okay? It is And that's only 20%. And he's like, oh, yeah, this is an existential threat to our society that... you know what? Let's just take a look. Okay? Percentage of trans people in the U.S. Yo, Metal Kitty Mom, thank you for the 1,000 biddies. That is incredibly generous of you. Thank you very, very much. Sammy Silverspark, thank you for the follow. Let's see. People, 1.6 million people ages 13 plus identify as transgender in the United States. Damn. How many people are in the US? 329.5 million. You know what? Fuck it. I'll do this 9 times. Okay? Alright, 1.6 divided by 329.5. Damn, you mean that trans people don't actually account for 20% of the population? Trans people account for 0.48% of the population? Not even 0.5% of the population. 0.48%. Damn, that's crazy, Jordan.
Community. So it's 1 in 5. I don't know what the upper limit is. There's a consulting group in the UK now that's claiming there's 150 different genders. There's actually, I suppose, 7 billion different genders if you want.
Based gender abolitionist Jordan Peterson. It's true, Jordy P. Let's get rid of all the gender. Everyone has their own individual gender, and we don't prescribe what kinds of roles they should play in society as a result. Based Jordan Peterson. Affirm everyone. Allow them to be who they want to be. This seems like a good solution, even though he's being a little whiny bitch about it. And you know what? I know Jordan Peterson probably wouldn't be a fan of neo pronouns or xenogenders, but you know what? I think he's just invented a new xenogender, and it's called whiny bitch gender, okay? Whiny bitch gender, and the only person who has that gender is Jordan Peterson, all right? It's true. It's true. Am I being slightly transphobic right now? Maybe.
Technical about it because everybody's temperament differs.
Boo, why, cry self.
I don't know what the upper limit is, and I have no idea what the upper limit is for this surgical intervention. We'll see. But I don't find it. I don't find it the least bit acceptable. And if you think
Jordan Peterson watching any kind of like a transhumanist media, like Blade Runner, losing his shit, pissing and shitting himself in the theater when like someone has 3 robot arms in like a post-roboticist future. like guys, by the way, just to keep in mind, anytime we like really nail down this like cybernetic limb shit, okay? Anytime in the future when we have the ability to like give people like 6 robot arms like Dr. Octopus from Spider-Man, okay? All bets are off, okay? You know, the second that happens, there will be people with like 5 dicks. There'll be people with like 10 pussies. They're gonna just have like giant like I don't know, like whale tail arms. It's gonna get wild. You're gonna see like people running around with like 8 mechanical spider legs. Like, just like imagine someone like Jordan Peterson trying to even like imagine that sort of future. He would like his eyes would comedically pop out of their sockets.
Think that your compassion is demanding that you extend your pity to the LGBT.
Let's start slowly. 2 dicks. Actually, you know what? By the time we reach that future, Avatar 3 will have come out, okay? And people will all be wanting to get, like, cybernetic, like, brain cords so they can, like, mind fuck each other, like they do in Avatar. You know, they put, like, their brain braids into, like, horses, and I guess they mind fuck the horses, but then they also, like, mind fuck each other. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? You guys remember the movie Avatar, right? Oh shit, self-report. Porcupine humans, but with dicks instead of quills? Oh no! Oh. Why are you like this? Because my brain latches onto minutia in media. Jack, don't fuck the horse. Look, it's not my fault. It's not my fault, chat, okay? It's not my fault that James Cameron, like, is vorsing around, okay? I'm not making it up. Okay, I'm not making it up. I'm not. I promise. Here, see? I'm not making it up. Avatar at 480p.
Easy boy.
Ale is female. Sultan.
Okay. Easy girl.
He's about to fuck that horse. Okay?
Sultan, Vale. Sultan. Sultan.
I hope they hang dog. Chat. All of the Na'vi in Avatar hang dong all the time, okay? Right now, contextually in this scene, Jake Sully is holding on to that horse's penis. That is a horse penis, chat. That's a horse penis. Look, that's not my fault. That's James Cameron's fault. And it's also all of your faults for making this one of the highest grossing movies of all time. Okay? It's not? Well, he's about to fuck it. They fucking. That's fucking right there, okay? They're brain fucking. I've never seen it, not my fault. What, no foreplay? Even the horse knows! The horse knows!
That is Sahelu. The bond. Feel her. Feel her heartbeat. Her breath. Feel her strong legs. You may tell her what to do. Inside. For now, say where to go.
Can someone... I don't know if this goes too far or not. Can someone edit Vosh's face over Jake Sully's face throughout this entire clip? That would really make this fun. Okay? I would enjoy that very much. I'm sorry, Jack, I bought the game. This Discordant Vol? Probably not. It's probably not. Brain fucking? Totally okay on Twitch. Maybe. Guys being dudes bonding with horses. And chat, that horse fucking was brought to you in a PG-13 family-friendly picture. Taking the one with... Yeah, look, you can be one with nature all you want, but not that level of one. Fuck. Okay, I'm doing everything I can to not finish this clip.
LGBTQ plus community at the cost of sterilizing children, you should think again. You're on the wrong side of this, and not in a trivial way.
I would appreciate if you don't ascribe beliefs to me that I don't have. Remember my original question.
So, is Kyle here saying that he doesn't believe that trans people should be allowed to transition? Like, I'm confused. Is Kyle saying he doesn't actually like, I know that Kyle is largely in favor of the LGBTQ community, but I'm confused about his response in this conversation.
You said earlier in this question that
I said Elliot Page is an adult, and so do you think that he has the right to transition? That was the original question. You made some
comments after that. Yeah, but as a star and a public figure and a model for emulation, she also has the responsibility not to entice confused adolescents into a catastrophic decision before they have the maturity to make that decision.
I just have to say, Jordan, I think it's a little bit of a moral panic. I just don't see some sort of, frenzy of
what would you
wanting
consider
to become trans.
First of all, that's a hell of a way to put it.
Why
don't you take a look at the increase in surgical interventions and see what you think? I mean, how many do you think is too many?
Well, yeah, but that's because 10, 15 years ago, hardly anyone was getting surgical interventions. Yeah, and that's another thing. And I know that Kyle was probably trying to keep Jordan on the line and not hang up. Yo, Discordant Vol, I got some strawberry lemonade. I'm right there with you. I just it bothers me the lack of pushback. If you're gonna have Jordan Peterson on to just say the things that he thinks, I don't know, then just watch clips of Jordan Peterson's show where he says what he thinks and then critique them. I don't know, some amount of pushback here would be nice, and there's not really that much pushback going on.
Again,
if we're talking about
I'll answer your question. The argument is it used to be very repressed because that's very outside of the tradition and the norm and the standard, and that now we sort of let the boot off the neck a little bit.
What used to be suppressed?
The entire LGBTQ community. I mean, it was very recently we even got gay marriage in the United States.
First of all, they're not a community.
Look, you say that, Jordan Peterson, but then just ask any trans girl if all trans girls know each other, okay? And we'll tell you no in a really offended tone, but then secretly we'll be like, yeah, I do know that. Yeah, you're right. I do know her. We dated on and off for 5 years. That's every trans girl. Not just in the United States or in one city, but just in the world, trans girls, we just find each other, okay? And a lot of us live in large communes with one another. Also, yeah, I don't know, was Stonewall not a community? Was the Stonewall bar not a community that came together to throw bricks at cops after finally being harassed to the breaking point? Trans people, gay people, we're in a community, okay? We've historically hung out in the same places for the last 150 years, okay? The idea that trans people and queer people aren't the community, but I don't know, some block in Brooklyn is a community. Come on, let's be real, all right? Trans people and gay people and bisexuals and lesbians and everything in between or beyond, we've all been subjugated and corralled into a very small number of locations wherever we happen to live. wherever we happen to exist. And we are absolutely a community. Yo, Tea with Goblins. Exactly. That's a really good example. But not all Christians would consider themselves part of exactly the same community, but Jordan Peterson would understand what people mean if someone said that they were part of the Christian community. Yeah.
Well, you understand the point I'm
community? Making. No, actually, neither I understand it nor you, and that's why we're
Kyle, I'm a big dumb idiot.
Delving into it. First of all, they're not a community. That's just a catchphrase. It's a buzzword. And I'll tell you something else, that almost all the kids who are undergoing surgical
I like how his like, this is one of the luminaries of the conservative movement, and he's just like, gay people aren't a community, bro. I didn't bring evidence to that effect. I'm just saying they're not a community, even though they meet all of the criteria for existing as a community. That's my argument. My argument is that, I rest my case, Your Honor. Jordan Peterson as a lawyer. Your Honor, my client did not do it. I rest my case.
Intervention. The clinical literature is absolutely clear on this.
Oh yeah, also, what children are undergoing surgery? That's something that conservatives will say all the time. Conservatives will say, oh, the trans kids are getting surgery. Now, what I've heard is sometimes, like, kids who are, like, 16, and this depends very, very much on the area, will sometimes get, like, mastectomies, okay? Because they've already had some growth of, like, breast tissue. But, and I need you all to know this. Cis male kids also get mastectomies sometimes because they have a condition that might cause them to grow breast-like structures on their chests. Gynogastroma? Like, what was it called? Oh god. Chat, one of you out there has to know this. What is the medical term for this? Gynomastia? Yes. There we go. Yeah. So, here. Oh god. There we go. Yeah. So there's a pretty common condition called gynomastia, where, like, young boys or men will develop breast-like structures. And you can see in this image, that's kind of what happens. And you know what? Jordan Peterson is not out there complaining about the irreversible damage being done by, like, young boys or young adult men who feel threatened by the fact that their masculinity threatened by the fact that they have, like, slightly enlarged breast tissue for, like, the masculine gender, you know? It is for some reason not acceptable for trans boys to have exactly the same medical interventions as cis boys. It's not okay for trans kids to have the same medical interventions as cis kids, which, by the way, is the argument against puberty blockers. Puberty blockers are used to delay puberty in cisgender kids. That's what they were invented for. They were invented in the 1970s. And they've been used predominantly by cisgender kids for the last 50 years with no ill effects. It's true. I remember in high school, one of my classmates had a breast reduction surgery because her breasts just became so large and she was so self-conscious about her large breasts that she got a breast reduction surgery. And it was fine. Is this about the Trump rally yet? Not yet. Yeah, exactly. Very knifey duck. Kids will get these surgeries all the time when they're cisgender. But when it comes to Jordan Peterson and the anti-trans panic going through the United States and abroad, well, those same surgeries for trans kids, that's irreversible damage. Yeah, and by the way, my classmate and friend who had breast reduction surgery, she was much happier afterwards. She didn't have back pain afterwards. She felt more confident in herself. And that's fine. That's fine. But you know what? Like, people regret all kinds of surgical interventions. People regret all kinds of medical interventions. You know, my dad, for example, had back surgery. And he had to have back surgery because there was like a misalignment in his spinal column, and his spinal column was filling up with spinal fluid, putting pressure on the spine and causing unimaginable amounts of pain. So he needed that back surgery because he was literally vomiting from the pain. He was hallucinating from the amount of pain it caused him. But it's now 5 years later, and he regrets that surgery. He experiences very real and very potent regret for having that surgery because his back aches and it's still hard for him to move around. People have regret over surgical interventions all the time. But you know what results in some of the least occurrent rates of regret among all surgical patients? One of the least regretted surgeries that you can get when you are diagnosed with like gender dysphoria and you decide after years of consideration that this is what you want, it's gender confirmation surgeries that confirm you in this gendered path that you've chosen for yourself. Yeah, people who get life-saving organ transplants still experience higher rates of depression and regret than most people who get gender confirmation surgery. That doesn't mean, oh, well, most people don't regret their gender confirmation surgery, so everyone should get it. No, it just means if you are suffering from the kinds of conditions that are generally applied to like gender confirming surgeries, they're some of the least likely ones that you're going to regret. I felt so much guilt after my first transplant rejected. Yeah, 100%. Mint Kuro can vouch, had bottom surgery, had complications, is still weird and painful, but I regret it 0%. Wonderful. I'm really happy for you, Mint. And I'm happy that you're back in chat, too.
%80 of kids with gender dysphoria identify as homosexual when they mature.
Okay. So that statistic, by the way, comes from a longitudinal study from like an Amsterdam-based clinic. And it is one of the older gender clinics that has been around. However, and the clinic that collected this data will straight up say this, by the way. What the diagnosis rate for gender nonconformity or was much higher back in the day, because like a kid wearing a dress one time or wanting to play with dolls would then be like, oh, well, the parents would be like, oh, well, we got to take them to the clinic. So like you would be diagnosed with it if you were just doing gender non-conforming behavior as a kid. And like, that's not the same as having gender dysphoria. These are two different things. And so a lot of those kids grew up and weren't trans. Wasn't the trans gay statistic from Blanchard? I might be thinking about a different study. Let me, No, I'm thinking of the, No, I wasn't thinking of the Blanchard study. I was thinking of the Amsterdam. Let's see. Yeah, the Amsterdam cohort of gender dysphoria study. Trends in prevalence, treatment, and regrets. So this is the study I was referencing. Yeah. Background: over the past decade, the number of people referred to gender identity clinics has rapidly increased. This raises several questions, especially concerning the frequency of performing gender-affirming treatments with irreversible effects and regret for such interventions. Yeah. Yeah. Basically, in one of the studies I want to say that very consistent reasoning of gay isn't bad, but trans is very bad. Look, most transes are gay. Yeah. Maybe I was thinking of the Blanchard study? How old is the study? The study this study came out in 2018, and it uses data from 1972 to 2015. And I believe I read an interview, I think with Crystal J.M. DeBlock, or it might be Annalou L.C. DeVries. But the conclusion of this study, by the way, was the number of people with gender identity issues seeking professional help increased dramatically in recent decades, and the percentage of people who regretted gonadectomy remained small and did not show a tendency to increase. So, like, the conclusion of the study, using the past, 40 years of data, is just that, there isn't actually a significant change in, the rate of regret. Meaning that the people who are actually going to the clinic are still, getting the treatment in the appropriate percentage that they need, largely. Yeah. By the way, this study, only 0.6% of trans women and 0.3% of trans men who underwent gonadectomy identified as experiencing regret. 99.4% of trans women and 99.7% of trans men over the course of 40 years. Over 40 years, sorry. Experienced regret. Did not experience regret. 99.4 and 99.7%. A treatment that is 99.4 or 99.7% effective is, almost unheard of in medicine, okay? That's insane. That's, insanely effective. Anyway. One of the issues, and it might not have been that study, that study might have been on my mind. For Twitter reasons, because I got in Twitter fights recently. But the underlying issue here is that back in the past, there were different criteria to diagnose gender nonconformity, or that would largely be called gender nonconforming today, but that was lumped under like gender dysphoria back in the day. So we have more specific and stringent standards when it comes to figuring out whether or not there is like the medical interventions needed today. If that makes sense. Does that make sense, chat? I know I just rambled a lot. I'm sorry. Does that make sense? Are you following what I'm saying? All right. Anyway, let's finish this. Come on. We've been going for like 3 hours. Let's go.
80%. And that means the vast majority of people who are being converted surgically are gay. Now, how is that an advantage to the gay community precisely?
No, see, I'm not taking a position in any way, shape, or form on
Salmon Moose. Thank you so much.
I don't know the first thing about this to comment on the kids. Well, but see, that's why we're having this conversation, though, is because my original question was about
kids,
the adults, and what your take is on the adults. And it sounds to me like, let me ask you guys, would you ban transition surgery for adults?
Yo, you're getting all the homies. Wait, I missed the question. What did Kyle ask?
I'm not taking a position in any way, shape, or form on the kids because I don't know the first thing about this to comment on the kids. Well, but see, that's why we're having this conversation, though, is because my original question was about the adults and what.
Wait, if you're Kyle, if you're coming in here and not knowing that, like, what do you? Kyle, do some prep. Do some basic prep, Kyle. Like, I know I don't know a lot about medicine, but like, because I'm trans and have to deal with this shit on a daily basis, I've done my research. Discordant Vol, thank you for the 100 biddies. It seems as though the study cast a wide net over people who liked more gender nonconforming aesthetics, which happened to catch a small population of trans individuals. That really skews data. Yeah, I'm not sure which study you're talking about, though. Let's see. Used to be one of my faves. Oh, how far he's fallen. I mean, like, I don't dislike Kyle. It's just that he could be doing a lot better. Salmon Moose, thank you for gifting a sub to Eco Resto Dragon, Public Loser, Oh Diddums, Mithril Mist, KF Logan, Circuit Overlord. You going crazy, girl. Thank you so much. Gifting a sub to Echo Rests. Thank you so goddamn much. Saving all these people from advertisements.
What your take is on the adults. And it sounds to me like, let me ask you guys, would you ban transition?
Hey, Discordant Vol, thank you for the 5 gifted subs. That is incredibly generous.
In surgery for adults.
You can tell Jordan Peterson is mad because he's just like sitting there, like sitting in like weird silence every time he's asked a question. Just listen to this.
I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, really. We're paying a big price for it. And I think that it was...
We're paying a big price for not keeping those queers in the closet. That's literally his position. His position is we should go back to torturing gay and trans people so that kids aren't coming out as gay and trans. We just need to torture them until they learn a lesson. Jordan Peterson, it didn't work in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and beyond, and it's sure as shit not gonna work now, okay? Salmon Moose, though, thank you for gifting a sub to Iocane Powder, which... Excellent name. Excellent name. How long until the waterworks start? He's always blubbering. Right now, he's diverted the water flow from his eyes to his pee-pee, okay? You can't see it right now, but he's still crying just as much, just from a different orifice.
It was an act of stunning hubris to conduct the first trans surgery procedure.
But that's true. It was also a stunning act of hubris to attempt open heart transplants. It was also a stunning act of hubris to perform brain surgery. It was also a stunning act of hubris to, I don't know, discover where babies come from. It was an act of stunning hubris to put human beings in a fucking metal box and shoot it at the moon. Okay? Like, every single medical and scientific advancement since humans first started, like, consistently, like, setting fire to things has been one long, prolonged period of stunning hubris. The stunning hubris of lifting entire cities off of ground level so that we can install sewer systems. The act of stunning hubris to think that 100,000 people could live in a small, like, 1 mile square area that is walled. The stunning act of hubris to think that we should not just shit outdoors and instead should shit in shitting areas. The stunning act of hubris that we could make metal boats. Yo, Metal Kitty Mom, thank you for the 500 unicorn penises. Tea with Goblins, thank you for gifting a tier 1 sub. It's Pascal the Otter, thank you for the follow. And Ryla, thank you for the fitty bitties. Like, Jordan Peterson is like a weird, like, I haven't even encountered this before. Like, I guess like fascio, like, would you call it like fascio primitivist? Like, primitive fascist? Like, we must return to Monke and also have a totalitarian state? Like, like, I don't know. Just fascist Luddite.
And it's not obvious to me at all that
we should stop destroying the planet. We should stop destroying the planet. And the best way we could stop destroying the planet is to adopt green energy solutions.
that it's been a net social good. And
but
so,
aren't there some people that are obviously
It's not obvious to me that not torturing trans people has been a net social good.
trans who were born in one body, they feel like they're in the other body, and when they're an adult, they can make the decision. And then even from just a freedom and liberty perspective, shouldn't they have that right? Even if they do it and then they regret it, shouldn't they have the right to try it?
it's a good question. I mean, it's a tricky one, right? Because there's all sorts of surgical enhancement procedures that are it's not obviously appropriate to make them illegal. And I don't know exactly where the cutoff line is, so to speak. And that's partly why we're having a public discussion about it. But this entire argument, in many ways, is stated so idiotically that it almost defies description. I mean, what do you mean, feel like you're in the wrong body?
Well,
What kind of measurement is that? Now, hang on a sec.
I was going to
There are rules for these sorts of diagnostic decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The rule is that you have to make a valid and reliable diagnosis. That's if you're diagnosing depression or anxiety or obsessive compulsive disorder or cancer or anything like that. There are standards that you have to abide by in order to make a diagnosis, in order to fulfill the obligations of your professional college. If someone comes to you and says, I feel like I have lung cancer, that is not sufficient grounds upon which to formulate a diagnosis, much less proceed to surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question is, what do you mean by feel? What is that? Is that an emotion? Is it a motivation? Is it a philosophical conclusion? What is it?
Let me explain to you what I mean. So I've been doing my show for about a decade, and about 2 or 3 years into doing my show, there were, some stories here and there that I covered about.
Do I think he should have been banned for stating his opinion on Twitter? I mean, I don't have any problem with him stating his opinion on Twitter, but I do guess that it's fair that he gets banned from Twitter for breaking their TOS, which he definitely did.
The trans issue. Somebody who is trans reached out to me and explained to me in a very straightforward way, yeah, look, I was born biologically female. I feel like I'm biologically male. My reality never lined up. Well, I'm just explaining what they said, and then you can respond however you'd like to respond. And they told me as soon as I got the surgery, changed the way I dressed, changed the way I appeared, I felt phenomenally better. And so that's why, at least for me, this was the answer.
Oh, well, it's against Twitter TOS to misgender and dead name trans people. And he did both in one tweet. And then he got suspended from Twitter and refused to delete the tweet, which is necessary for being unsuspended from Twitter. So that's just kind of it. He didn't want to delete his tweet, so he's still banned from Twitter. Yeah, misgendering is against TOS. If I'm intentionally misgendering you. Yeah.
Now, I think it would be incredibly arrogant for me to say back to that person, no, you shouldn't do that, or I know better than you do for yourself. Now, that's not to say that every time somebody does this, it works out well, of course, because everybody's an individual. But in some instances, that's the answer. So, me as a simple outsider, I just look at it and say, hey, whatever floats your boat, and if it works, it works.
Look, most of the time, my attitude is you can go to hell in handbasket any way you choose if you're an adult. Now, this problem is complicated and compounded by the fact of the necessity of medical involvement and the ethics on the medical front. So when you asked me about how that should be regulated, my answer was I'm not exactly sure about that.
Yeah,
although it isn't obvious to me that it's obvious to me that the trans surgery enterprise has gone way too far, thousands of people too far. And I'm certain that...
I mean, I'm not a doctor or anything, but I'm certain all of this... you know what? I, Jack Gardner, am not a doctor, but I'm certain this brain surgery thing has gone too far. I'm certain this brain surgery thing has gone too far. It's just not natural to carve open a hole in someone's skull and then get a scalpel and cut a section out of it. You need all of your brain. You need all of it. Last name reveal? My last name is on my Twitter. Well, Blanchettos, then I guess you shouldn't use Twitter. It's weird because it's not a problem to not misgender people for the vast majority of folks who use Twitter. Brain surgery? Yes. All brain surgery is bad. There's far too much brain surgery going on. Silly lesb, I'm mocking Jordan Peterson.
But it's harmed exponentially more people than it's helped.
All right, guys, what you just saw
was me mostly sitting silently while Jordan Peterson said insane shit that he would also otherwise say if he was alone on his platform.